So I've been playing some standard. I've been playing all sorts. Mono red, red-white token control, red-black mid-range, the black-green lands deck that is like Scape Shift. I don't know which order the videos will come out in. This one and the landfall one will come out one after the other. This is probably I don't want to go into too much about why I'm enjoying standard. I talk about that in more detail in the landfall video as I'm playing it. But in today's video, I want to talk about the sleeper hit of the summer, a card that was less than $1, and I liked it at pre-release, but it wasn't good enough for any of the Eternal formats that I play, and it's real good in standard. I want to talk about how Urabrask's Forge has gone from being a $1 card to a $5 card to Bloomburrow landing, and now it's a $12 card. I'll unpack why, and I'll play a bit of gameplay in the background whilst I'm doing it too. This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com. Use the code Kenobi at checkout to get 5% off your order. It helps to support the show, and you will be sent a PleasantKenobi Orc Army token where I'm fighting the Orc Armies of Darkness with my milk hand. That's right, that's a hand made out of milk. Urabrask's Forge is a 3-mana artifact from All Will Be One. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put an oil counter on Urabrask's Forge, then create an X1 red Phyrexian horror creature token with trample and haste, where X is the number of oil counters on Urabrask's Forge. Sacrifice the token at the beginning of the next end step. This card went by largely with very minimal fanfare and didn't see much play in the previous standard, a format that I paid very little attention to. I just knew this card was a bulk card because I was opening up on my Whatnot stream, and I'll link to those in the description below as well, and it wasn't an exciting hit. But I've always liked Urabrask's Forge because it reminds me of cards like Goblin Assault, an old favourite of mine. I love cards that incrementally give you little bodies and dudes to hit with, especially if they can like trigger a Perfrost or an Impact Tremor style effect, although none of those things are actually in standard right now. But Goblin Assault obviously is a bit of an old throwback now. The ones that people probably realise or know more are its cousins, its power crept version. Goblin Rabblemaster was a force in standard and has seen play in Eternal formats too, including Legacy, for being a aggressive creature that shits out bodies. And Assembled Legion is probably the most powerful commander version of this effect. Urabrask's Forge is unique compared to all of those in the sense that it makes one singular body that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and creates a momentum that an aggro deck, a mid-range deck, or control deck can all capitalize on. And that's the important thing. The reason that Urabrask's Forge has gone up in price so much is that it's seeing play across all 3 major archetypes and across half a dozen decks. To be clear, Urabrask's Forge is not a problem. The standard format is so wide and open right now with like a dozen or so different decks across. Some of them have crossover and archetype, right? There's a lot of token decks. Even one of the blue-white control decks has a token finisher. There's a red-white token deck that uses this as a control deck and so on. But it's just a wide open format. And a lot of the red decks, not all, but a lot of the red decks are playing Urabrask's Forge. But there are plenty of other 3-drop creatures like this ferret, otter, fox thing. I can't remember what creature type it is. I'm not going to look it up for the video. This thing is seeing play. Cruel Claw is seeing play in red-black mid-range decks as well, which is in similar slots. So sometimes you want this over the Forge, for example. But what this does, the other Rabblemaster variants like Rabblemaster 2.0, Krenko, and similar goblins, is that it doesn't die to the same removal as all your other dorks. So when you play this in an aggro deck or in a control deck that's playing its own wraths, it's not just dying to spot removal. Hell, the creatures that it makes, the aggressive attack that it makes, are not things that people want to spend removal on anyway. And thus you have a card that is dodging a lot of removal and interaction. There are obviously artifact removal spells in the format, quite a few of them in fact, but it's making the opponent's answers line up less cleanly to what you're putting down as questions. And so you're probably wondering, well, why the hell didn't this see play before this? Why does the price graph on Goldfish look like this? Absolutely minimal play, minimal secondary market like desire. Then eventually it's $5, which means it's seeing a bit of play, and then boom, Bloomburrow launches it into the stratosphere and it's climbing. I know $12 isn't quite the stratosphere. I just want to be a bit hyperbolic there. Well, there's a few reasons. Firstly, I guess Farewell existed. Farewell is a very stupid magic card that is primarily a problem commander, but as a 6-mana wrath for control decks, they can choose just the artifact mode, for example, if they have a board, or they can just wipe away everything you've got. Now, 6 mana is a cost that you have to climb to, but I never liked such a clean answer at 6 mana, because it was just the best wrath ever printed. At 6 mana, I mean, that clears up everything. Not a big fan. Glad it's gone. Part of the reason I thought about trying Standard again is that this card isn't something I'm going to see across the table in long, grindy matchups where I get blown out. The other major culprit for why this didn't see much play previously was Fable of the Mirror Breaker, a Magic the Gathering card that certainly does a lot of things. It kind of does all the things. It's the best thing you can do for 3 mana in that sort of enchantment artifact utility slot that mid-range or control decks might want. Essentially, Fable the Mirror Breaker was so good it was pushing out other cards that perform kind of similar roles. And to be clear, Forge does a very different thing to Fable. It's an aggressive card compared to Fable. But if you've got space in your curve for a 3-drop, you're probably playing Fable the Mirror Breaker over most cards. This card is bonkers. And now it's rotated out. But on top of that, Bloomburrow, oh beloved Bloomburrow, has brought some really cool and interesting designs to the format, and a lot of those designs care about tokens. The elephant in the room is probably the omnipresent Caretaker's Talent, a rare that is currently going for around $10. A 3-mana enchantment, which is a class, by the way, they're back from the D&D set. And the first mode says whenever one or more tokens you control enters the battlefield, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, which means every turn that you trigger and make a horror off of the Forge, you draw a card. And then for 1 white mana, you can level it to level 2, keep the level 1 ability, and gain the trigger to copy a token you control. So if you have a 4/1 token in play that's going to sack at the end of the turn, you can copy it and keep one that won't get sacked, because the second copy doesn't have that extra clause from the original Forge. And then its level 4 is all gravy in token decks, giving all your tokens +2/+2. This card is bonkers, and it's opened up mono white, red white, Jeskai, like blue white control, mid-range, all these different versions of token decks, because this card is a silly good enabler that gives you such good card advantage. Big fan of this card. Might be sick of it in a couple of weeks, but we'll see. And then to a lesser extent, we also got this Fountain Port. Oh my goodness, this card is dope. I just sold a load of mine, and now I'm thinking of building a paper standard deck, so that was a mistake. Coming in at around $5 at the moment, Fountain Port is a land from Bloomburrow that says that it taps for colorless mana. It has 3 other modes. You know a land's going to have some utility somewhere when it has so many modes. The first one is 2 mana, tap, sack a token, draw a card. So you can take the horrors made by the Forge and draw a card off of them. Wowza. That is in every part of the cow to get a good old stew going. 3 mana, tap, pay 1 life, make a fish. A 1/1 blue fish, which has, it's a fish, which is, it's just funny. Like the idea of just like end of your turn, make a fish. I just love that. I fucking love that we're making fish people's end steps. But what it reminds me of is your Castle Ardenvales and similar lands that allow you to keep your mana up to use interactive instant speed spells that the red, white, and blue, white control decks might want to do. Alternatively, it can also keep your opponents guessing because they just don't know what mode you're going to use or what you've got in your hand. And beyond that, it can allow you to put down threats onto the board through counter magic, because people can't counterspell the activate ability of the Fountain Port. And its least likely used mode, although I consider seeing more playing Commander, is 4 mana, tap, create a treasure token, which, by the way, making the fish or the treasure does trigger Caretaker's Talent, because it's not creature token. Either of those modes will draw you a card if you have a Caretaker's Talent in play. So you can play the Forge at the top end of the mono red decks, and by top end I'm kind of saying near the top end. They are playing the 4 mana Price of Progress Cat as well, which is a sick magic card. Or you can play it in your mid-range decks as just a value engine alongside your Fountain Ports and your Caretaker's Talents, alongside the rest of your creature suite or token generators or similar. It's a good mid-range card because it can generate you value through the synergies that are present in the cards in the format. And of course, you can play in control decks too, where not only does it synergize with Caretaker's Talent and Fountain Port, both cards that you can play in a control shell, but Urabrask's Forge then benefits from the temporary nature of its creatures, allowing you to hit them with Sunfall or Brotherhood's End or the other black one, that Cover Up, whatever it is. Either way, you can wrath away their stuff, knowing full well the next turn you'll get a trigger and a body to hit them with. I've actually had games, especially in best of 1, where my opponent just scoops to the idea, as soon as they see me assemble Caretaker's Talent into Forge or Forge into Caretaker's Talent, because the amount of card advantage that I'm going to accrue as I, ping them down or slowly, or rather quickly wear them away is just too big. Hell, in recording for this video, I kept having people scoop while I just had the card in hand. They didn't know about it, but maybe it's the coming threat of it. Them missing a land drop and being like, nah, I'm done. Urabrask's Forge is very, very good. And I'm glad that it's seeing more play now that Farewell is gone, and it's got these synergistic engine pieces that have come in Bloomburrow. Part of the thing that's also drawn back to standard is playing these synergistic piles, where I'm not just raw dog slamming a card that's better than my opponent's stuff, although Shieldred is still in the format, although less of an issue, but instead I'm collecting together multiple cards that create an engine, and then using my not completely and utterly souped up removal spells like we see in the Eternal formats with Leyland's Binding and Prismatic Endings and stuff, like removal spells like answer everything. Although again, Leyland's Binding isn't the format. There is a domain deck too. But what I'm saying is, before I started going off on a side tangent about Leyland's Binding, is that playing standard and using my answers that only answer some permanent types and not all, to then try and interact with their synergistic engine while I assemble mine, it's good clean magic. It's genuinely really fun. I'm going to try and do more standard gameplay on the channel just while I'm enjoying it. Maybe I'll get bored and sick and tired. Maybe Caretaker's talent will overstay its welcome. Who knows? But whilst Wizards mismanage Modern and Legacy, it does give me a 60 card format to play in. There will be some Canadian Highlander content coming up on the channel as well, and I want to do some Dual Commander as well, but I've just got the standard bug this week. Let me know if you want to see more. Let me know if you've been playing a deck and standard that you really like. I'm basically in for trying it all because there's such a wide variety of things to play with, and I'm a big fan of some of the rares that have just come in from Bloomburrow. They're really fun to play. God bless Caretaker's talent. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and ta-ta for now.